Welcome back to Sweat and Iron, everybody. I am Graham, your host, and in this episode, I sit down with my buddy Chris Reed to discuss anything and everything fitness and nutrition related. We cover macros, we cover deadlifts, we cover diets, fad diets, we cover the list goes on. I had a giant list of questions thanks to everybody out there in social media land, everybody who's reached out to me after I said, hey, I got Chris Reed on. I need questions. Let's get it out there. Chris Reed is not a personal trainer. He is not a nutritionist, but he has a lot of experience in the area of what we're talking about. He knows a lot of people. He's done a lot of research. He has looked at studies focused on different diets and what it has done and this and that and this and that. And, this podcast is all about experiences and knowledge and facts. I don't like doing opinions. So without further ado, enjoy the show. So how are you?
Been good, man. I've had a lot of things been going on the last between messing up my phone and now today my phone is my basement's, I don't know if it's from the snow or what, but it's there's water in the basement.
There's water in the basement.
Yeah, so I got to figure out that later. I went and tried to save the deadlift platform. That's the only thing I really cared to make sure it didn't get too wet.
Well, it's the frozen tundra out there right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm not too far from you. I'm like an hour and a half.
You're in Naperville, right?
Oswego now, but yeah, that area.
Oswego, yeah. Yeah, the problem that we're running into now is that any moisture that happens to come on the surface, it just kind of, there's nowhere for it to go. So it finds, if you got any cracks in your foundation, like my parents do, the moisture finds a way into the foundation.
Yeah, that's got to be it because I got puddles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so after that, I'm going to figure that one out.
All right, I am trying to, let's search on my phone. I usually do a better job of searching on my phone. I was going to search on my laptop, okay, so last night I said laptop, and Josh laughed at me. He said, Graham uses terms like laptop. Well, what else? What other terms are there?
Yeah, unless you're specific about, like, if it's a MacBook, maybe call it a MacBook, but it's a laptop.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure where he was going with that. I'm thinking that he was going for the douchebag book, the MacBook.
Like calling it that, yeah, but not everyone has that. It's a laptop.
No, I like MacBooks. Once upon a time, I had a Mac PowerBook or whatever they were called, and oh man, that thing was like indestructible. I loved it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I missed it by like a year. When I went to college, everyone gets their one. People are still buying like the Dells and some of that, and then the next year, all the kids came in with straight up Macs.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Because I remember I was in organic chemistry. And these two guys came in with the PowerBooks, and I'm like, oh, wow, that looks nice. I think I'll get one of those. Of course, I was a student at the time, so I tacked it on to student loans, which is like,
yep.
And so I'm like, okay, yeah, this will work. And I think I got a discount, too, because I was a student. And
yeah,
it was great because it apparently, there was a third guy who had one, too. So we did all this file sharing. I got a free version. I don't know if it was legal, but I got like Microsoft Word and whatnot for free from them. I don't know. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't legal.
How old are you?
I am 34.
Okay, I'm 30. So yeah, there was probably not a ton of people using all the Macs, but yeah, when I was in college, then the people below me, the younger kids, it was straight Mac.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty funny.
I think that we just all preferred using some Microsoft products that it was just better for writing papers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's see. You're here, Chris Reed. Chris Reed's in the house, everybody. I finally got him on here. And I know that you said that you've been super excited to do this interview, but I haven't posted the episodes yet. But pretty much in almost every episode, I have somebody asking when you're going to be on because they all know that you're going to be on. And I got people messaging me too. So
I love it. I love it. I'm pumped. Thanks for having me on this and being good with my schedule.
Here's the thing that's I find amazing about you, Chris, and you'll have to forgive me because I'm going to say something that I hope does not offend you, and it probably won't because you're very hard-skinned, I think, and you've heard it all, seen it all, and that's why I'm having you on here. You're not certified in anything, first of all. Let's just get that out of the way. You're not a certified personal trainer, nutritionist, anything really. But here's the thing. You've been there, you've done it, you've got experience, and you know people, and you have a lot of connections in the fitness area, in the nutrition area, that you have so much knowledge at your fingertips.
Yeah, I think what happened was with my own trial and error. I mean, I bought into every craze, the whole saturated fat, bulletproof coffee type of thing, and kind of through my own errors, I was so frustrated. Started really researching, and based on that, that's my qualification is just making all the mistakes and learning why something worked and why something didn't work.
Exactly. And so when I first met you and you were throwing around all these tips, you'd hear somebody doing something and you'd say, I wouldn't do that. And then when I said, hey, I'm going to bulk, and you heard what my body fat percentage was, and you said, well, I'd really hold off on that unless, you don't want to like what you're going to see, that kind of thing. And this is where I say, I hope you forgive me. You don't take it to heart, but I thought for a while there that you were a dick.
Yeah, I will come up across because I made that same mistake. I was bulking. I was like, I need to put on some more muscle, and I just didn't look good, and the bulk wasn't going well. So I think I will come off because I'm so strongly against it. Like, I don't want anyone to make the same mistakes I made, and I made them all. I'll show you some pictures where I thought I had some muscle, but it was just adipose.
Yeah, and so it took me a while to, I don't know, for a while there I was thinking that, and then the more I saw your videos, the more I saw you post stuff in the last, I'd say 3 to 4 months, I started to recognize, no, he's not really a dick. He's actually, he's just very upfront about the facts. It's like, okay, if you want to do that, then sure, but you're going to have to deal with consequences, that kind of thing. And it's a reflective thing where you hear it and then you have to take that and go, okay, do I want to listen to him or not? And if you don't know Chris Reed that well, then you probably won't listen to him. But if you do know him, then you'll take his information to heart because, as we said, he's tried a lot, he's done a lot, he's seen a lot, he knows a lot of people. He's I mean, he's not just a guy from the Chicago suburbs, people. He knows people everywhere.
Yeah, I just wish someone had shook me and told me and slapped me when I was doing some of the things I was doing. So I like to get the information across is not rude, but I like to be pretty upfront about what it is and what people, and I think we both been there. People always miss the forest for the trees. It seems to happen. So whenever there's like a little thing, like, and I know we're going to talk about it, but like insulin sensitivity or carbs and all that, and as soon as there's a little bit of evidence for that, they don't understand the big picture. They're going to hone on that, and that is what I used to do horribly.
Functional training.
Jeez, yeah. What is functional training? That's my favorite training myth ever.
Yeah, I know we're going to cover that one for sure. But, I mean, this episode can go as long as we want. So what I want to do, Chris, is first, let's get to know you. There's going to be people listening who don't know you very well. There's going to be people who think they know you very well. Let's get to know the real Chris Reed and where he's been, what he's done. Not in the sense of what you do for a job, but fitness and nutrition. So so you said that there are photos or whatever, and you once upon a time you were in the spot where you weren't sure what you were doing, and you wish you can go back and shake some knowledge into you.
Yeah. So I mean, growing up, so I played basketball in high school and then for a couple of years in college. So we were doing the training there, and I also worked at GNC. I was that guy that would come in and sell supplements. So this is another thing when people are talking about things. I was that person just putting out some bro science, had no idea. That's when proprietary blends and who knows what was in that stuff. So, but just by playing the sport and lifting, and I was taking supplements, I got decent results. And this is kind of where it gets dangerous, is when people get results and misattribute what they were doing. That's when the bad info gets around. So for a while, I was doing that, and I mean, there's no way I was going to put on too much fat playing basketball. We were running too much. But when I got out of college, I started, and I worked at GNC throughout college. I started listening kind of some of the minimalist people like Tim Ferriss, who I still like for other reasons, but not his advice on diet and training, the whole bulletproof type thing. And I look a little chunky. I was still working out, but I did not understand diet. I thought it was all about hormones and didn't believe in calorie as a calorie type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember kind of the Phoenix moment. I was looking in the mirror. I'm like, I should not, I've never looked like this before. I should not have this happen. And that's when I started. I think Lane Norton was obviously who a lot of us started listening to, is kind of who I started listening to. And he's as harsh as it comes with the not putting up with the bullshit. So I think that's kind of when I started listening to him, and I started seeing results kind of quickly.
Yeah, you do have some laneisms. I mean, you do call bullshit when you see it.
Yeah, it's just because I wish someone did that to me. Someone should have called me out. I mean, I was in that GNC. Someone should have came into me and said, "What are you talking about?"
So
Um,
I know that I've had other people on here who worked at GNC. What was it like working at GNC?
and I loved it because, yeah, I'll tell you, I still did learn a lot. But I would look at the back. A lot of times when we were slow, I'd look on the back of a container and start researching ingredients, why this does what it does. So that is kind of where my curiosity and my passion for supplements and training originated from. Um, but then what I never did was, so you look at a studied ingredient like citrulline, let's call it. Well, it was in there. So, okay, citrulline does this. But I never looked at, okay, what was the study? Like reading into the study, well, it was 6 grams of citrulline malate. Well, there's a gram in this thing, or maybe it's a proprietary blend. Uh, so that's kind of what happened later on. But GNC was where I learned, but it was also where I was spewing some bullshit.
Oh, okay. A lot of the bullshit bro knowledge.
Oh yeah, man. Post-work anabolic window, arginine, different forms of creatine. Oh, it's awesome. I didn't sell the Muscle Tech. I didn't work at a franchise though, so I'm proud to say I was not pushing the Muscle Tech Jay Cutler, grow your arms 4 inches in 2 weeks type thing.
We don't discuss Jay Cutler in this house.
I'm talking about the bodybuilder.
Oh, okay. I was like, we're not going to go there. We're not.
Yeah. No.
I mean, I'm a Packer fan. My wife is a Bears fan. The house is torn apart, but
Ooh.
yeah. Well, you live so close to the border, it's going to happen. But I mean, I'm kidding. It's not a house torn apart. I support the Bears when the Packers get thrown out, which has been pretty much like every year for the past what 3 or 4 years or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now they're revamping the team completely. Anyways, tangent. Let's come on back onto the highway here. I'm really interested in hearing your take on. You were talking about anabolic. We'll get back on the highway and take a different exit here, just very briefly. I want to hear your take on the anabolic window.
All right. So previously, the thought on the anabolic window was basically right after training. I mean, right after people would tell you they'd have their shakes ready by the time that last set hit,
Yeah,
was where you were basically like a sponge. Everything you eat post workout is going to just go straight to the muscles.
I was one of
No
those people.
cracking. Oh, me too. Um, and that's just not true. So, but it does matter about a couple things. So, like if you ate a pre-workout meal, the amino should still be available, circulating, available to help muscle building after the workout. Um, there is a 2 to 3 hour like initial spike in muscle protein synthesis. So after a lift, they show like up to 48 hours muscle protein synthesis is elevated, but 2 to 3 hours there's kind of initial spikes. So I think Aragon and Schoenfeld have showed they do think there is a little bit of a window, but it's like 4 to 6 hours. It's not 20 minutes, where there might be where you can keep muscle protein synthesis elevated a little longer, and where you might absorb and restore glycogen a little more prevalent without having any fat gain.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit of evidence for it, but really it's probably 2 to 3 hours, 4 to 6 hours. Normal meals should replenish your glycogen stores, and you don't need to hound protein. But if you train fasted, I would get a protein shake as soon as possible after training. I really would. There's definitely evidence showing that then it would be important.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I'm going back into my cutting phase, and there will be some days that I will work out fasted. And I have noticed that if I don't eat, let's take yesterday, for example. I worked out around 8 o'clock in the morning. I wrapped up my workout about 9:15, and I think I was holding off eating until about 11:30, and I was getting the shakes.
Ooh, why were you waiting?
Just because there was no real food to eat.
Yeah. Are you okay with protein shakes, or does your stomach hurt?
I'm okay. I'm totally okay with protein shakes. I just wanted some chicken, and I don't know how to use the Instant Pot, and I didn't want to have to cook it in the oven and this and that, and I was starting to get hangry, and when you get hangry, you don't think straight, and then you just and so I was home alone, and I need to get some cooking lessons from my wife on that Instant Pot, because if she can make chicken in like 20 minutes or less, I want to be able to do that. So I know you just have to push a button. I just need to know which one.
Yeah. See, that's the case though, where protein shakes are perfect. And I'll tell you this too, and I think we've talked about it a little bit in our evidence-based group that we have, our community, is sometimes people will kind of get this information and almost rebel against the bro science completely, so in that case, let's talk about it. Like, you don't need a protein shake. There's no anabolic window per se, but that's probably a time when it would make a lot of sense for someone to have a protein shake. So I remember I think I told someone the other day, I was like, hey, take 40 grams of protein post-workout. And someone, an evidence-based person, told me, why are you saying that? There is no anabolic window. And that's not what I was saying. I was saying for you to hit your daily protein requirements, it might make sense for you to take that post-workout shake as an opportunity, and so that you are hitting this, because at the end of the day, if you're struggling and saying I got 60 more grams to go and you're about to go to bed, it's just an easy way to incorporate protein.
I could see that. And the problem though is that when you post online, when you do anything online, whether it's an email, text messages, even, people, I don't know what it's called, but it's reading into it a little too much. You don't get the full spectrum of what they're trying to get across. And so it's very easy for somebody to say, oh, here he goes again, trying to be the know-it-all. Why are you telling people all this?
Yep, exactly. And I hope they know I don't want you to make the same mistakes I did. I used to do that and eat all the fat and the minimalist training, and it didn't really work.
So let's get back to the story of Chris Reed now that we went on that a really good tangent there, which I think will turn into a gem here for sure. If you were doing anything and anything, you were taking the bullshit knowledge. At what point, or how old were you when? Was this a recent thing that within the last 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years, or how old were you when you finally woke up one day and you're like, I got it. It makes sense now.
It was about 3 or 4 years ago. And I remember I was like, I don't know why I weights. I don't really think I looked better when I was in college, what I was doing. And I was like, I got to find out what I'm doing wrong. Some of this can't be true. All the stuff that's being sold to me. So that's kind of like when I started looking at Lane, and I don't agree with everything Lane says, but he was an awesome kind of wake up call, because he screams in his videos.
Yeah, he does scream. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's when I started understanding calories mattering, macros mattering, why they matter, what does matter, hormones versus that. And it was really awesome because it made everything simple. Mike Math was another guy who break. It was awesome because it was simple. It didn't make anything easier, but it made it a lot simpler. And I kind of understood and could attribute when I was getting results to what I was doing versus just saying, okay, what actually was happening during that time when I was gaining strength or putting on muscle versus now what I'm doing and putting on a lot of fat. I got chunky for a while. I hated that.
You got chunky for a little while? No way.
Yeah, I'll send you some pics. You could just see my face, and I didn't have much definition. And that's when I had enough of it. And that's not to say so. I mean, I'm nothing special. Probably my greatest lift is I got my 500-pound deadlift. I don't compete. I'm not a power lifter. I'm not that strong, but I think based on my genetics and how long I've been doing it, I'm starting to see results. Pretty happy with that.
Nice. So now that we have touched base with, you've been anywhere and everywhere, you've followed so many different icons in the fitness industry and nutrition industry. How do you feel about taking on some questions from some certain people from a certain area of Facebook?
Yes. Let's do it. I'm guessing reverse dieting might come up.
Well, I'm going to leave that up to you. Let's see. Okay, let's go back to supplements. Proteins per pound and BCAAs. Okay, so let's discuss. There is, what am I trying to say? I got to think of my question here. There are so many people on social media, on the internet, because the internet makes a lot of things possible. You're out there and people can find it, and that's what makes it dangerous. So what is it that you should go by how much protein should a person need is pretty much it. And this is a great question because I just happened to be on Instagram the other day, and a guy was saying, he has this video going on that keeps showing up on my feed. How much protein do you need?
That is a good one, and that's been debated across. And I think so recently, it was 2017, I think, Schoenfeld. So Brad Schoenfeld and Aaron Argon did a review. What was it, in the Journal of International Society of Sports? I think Eric Helms might have had something to do on, and it was both on daily protein and protein distribution. So first off, they found that 0.7 to 1 gram a day per pound of body weight. So if I weigh 200, the upper limit, so they assess a confidence interval of 1 gram per pound. So for me at 200 pounds, I would take 200 in a day. So with that too, it was a meta-analysis. So they took a lot of studies trying to look at the same thing, and they found that 0.7 was, and they use those statistics. I don't even understand the Bayesian. And then they assessed it with a confidence interval of 1 gram per pound of body weight. And then they also talked about, because a lot of times people talk about how much protein can you absorb in a single meal, and that's a lot of the myth. There was always 20 grams, people said, which was funny, but technically all protein's absorbed. So protein's used for a lot of different things. There's different substrates in the body that it goes towards. So I guess the question I think they're really asking is how much can you use in a single meal for muscle building? So they said basically with that limit, with that daily intake, to spread it out over a minimum of 4 meals. So what was it? I hate when people use kilograms, but it was 0.4 to 0.55 grams per a gram per kilogram across a minimum of 4 meals. So basically, if I break mine down into a gram a day, so I do, if I eat 4 times a day, I would eat 50 grams per meal.
Okay. Yeah, I like how you say the 20 gram. They just picked that number. That's one of those things where you want to be in that meeting at the table, and everybody's sitting around going, okay, so we've got this bro theory. What number should we choose? Well, I think 15. No, wait, I think 25. Well, let's meet in the middle, everybody. 20 is a nice round number.
How it really did happen, though. So the studies that were done on that was done with kind of like isocaloric protein shakes. So if you are taking in just like whey isolate, 20 grams, you hit the leucine threshold, and you also, it's absorbed so quick. So whey isolate taken on its own is absorbed. Initially, it goes up, and then muscle protein's down. Well, that's not as much real world. So if you take it in like a mixed meal, so if you take a casein protein or meat with fat and vegetables, if you take it in with enough fat, you've probably seen the aminos in the blood for about like 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's how it was done originally. So that's why this was nice that they did it not just using protein shakes and understanding mixed meal and how proteins, how quickly it's digested in whey isolate versus a meal.
What's your take on the different kinds of proteins out there? You've got people out there, I'm not going to name names, but there's different people that own companies, and they say, this protein's better. And then the person comes along and says, well, my protein comes from egg. And then my protein comes from, this is pure whey. This is whey isolate. This is this. What's your take on all that as far as, is one better than the other? Is there any benefit to one over the other?
Yeah, that one's interesting. So there probably is. And what I don't understand a lot of, and I want to get into, is understanding bioavailability, exactly what that means. Like egg and whey have super high bioavailability, so I don't think it matters too much. And the speed at which it's digested could matter. So if you're working out and a whey isolate might be beneficial for you because it's going to be absorbed quickly right away. Versus though, if I was taking a shake in the middle of the day, maybe I want a mix, the one that has, a little bit of casein, whey, and egg in it. So I think it's more situational to when you take your protein. I don't buy into, the fact that it's grass-fed or it's pre-digested. I hate that. People talk about pre-digested proteins and undenatured. The undenatured thing is just selling there. I think the only thing, there might be some like immune system benefits the way when it's undenatured, but other than that, it doesn't. Undenatured, your body didn't. So undenatured means that it hasn't like been broken down yet, but your body is going to do that anyway, for one. For two, if you look at like an egg is better absorbed by your body after it's cooked. And when you're cooking it, you're denaturing the egg. Yep. So you're helping it so that it can be digested. So some of the undenatured grass-fed, that stuff probably does not matter, but the type of protein might matter depending on when you're taking it.
Because one is fast digesting, the other one takes a little bit longer to digest, which keeps you fuller longer.
Yeah, and it just, so you're going to keep muscle protein synthesis elevated a little bit longer too. Then right after workout, like say you were going to do it, it would be good to spike it. But then after, like you're having a meal, say you're doing it as a snack, it would probably be more beneficial to have a slower digesting protein.
Okay. All right.
So yeah.
Good answers.
The gram per pound is just such an easy one. It's funny because that started as bro science, but it's true. That's what they're showing. And it's just, there's not a lot of downsides to it too, especially if you're dieting. You're going to protect lean muscle as you're dieting. And it's got the highest thermic effect of food, high satiating macro. So I don't understand why people object to the high protein. It doesn't have a lot of drawbacks, in my opinion.
Nah, I think the only drawback to high amounts of protein is if you're not getting enough fiber or something like that. I've interviewed Eric where he talks about how he got, the side effect of obviously, you're not going to go to the bathroom that much. Some people have that problem, and I occasionally run into that problem. But I think that's when you have to just look at your diet.
Yeah, that's just, you should have fiber controlled no matter what you're doing. High protein, high carb, low carb, you should have a certain fiber intake. That's beneficial for health and for regular. The protein really shouldn't affect a ton of that. It's nitrogen and it's the urea cycle, so it's more. The aminos will come out through urine.
You remember when Lane did his interview on Joe Rogan's podcast with the leader of the Keto Zealots?
Oh, Dom Diaxino, and he's the man actually though too. I like him.
Yeah. I mean, it was a great interview. I believe that was the interview that that Lane mentioned. I might be wrong here, but I thought it was the interview that he mentioned he had a buddy who kept coming to him saying, how do I deal with this whole bloating problem and getting backed up issue? And Lane said, well, you gotta reassess your diet there. Maybe take a break from, what are you eating? He's like, well, I'm eating chicken. I'm chicken, protein. He's like, well, dude, back up, eat a piece of pizza, eat a little bit of pasta. And he checked back in with the guy later, and the guy was like, you cured me.
Yeah, no, definitely. But that one was actually, it wasn't the protein. He was eating too much fiber. So
Was that what it was?
Yeah. So there's like a minimum. I wish I had it right now of what you should have, but there's a minimum and kind of a maximum of what you want to hit with fiber. Too much fiber can kind of do. So he told him to have some sugar carbs, basically.
Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah. So but that is true. He told him he's got to have some simple carbs. Probably told me to eat a Pop-Tart or a Pixie Stick, and he was feeling better.
Yeah, I do believe he said eat a Pop-Tart or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's true though.
So let's get a silly question in here. Larry chimed in and he wants to know 1990 Bulls or 2010 Warriors, Jordan or LeBron?
Ooh, well, obviously Jordan, but the 90 Bulls, I was too young, but that's the team that
90
I
Bulls.
would say it's the 90. I think he's probably saying 95, 90, or maybe saying 90s Bulls.
1990s. Yeah, because it would have been like they did the 4-peat, right? So it was like
3-peats.
3-peats. Yeah, because it was 94.
Yeah, 95, 96 was when they went 72-10, and they're still the best. It doesn't mean a thing without a ring. The Warriors that beat their 73 when they got 73 wins, they didn't win it that year. So I'm still going Bulls.
Well, there you go, Larry. So so Jordan for sure. Stick with the Bulls.
Yeah, Jordan is. He's my savior. Jordan's church around here.
I remember I was listening to, there's this podcast I listened to called Crime in Sports, and they were bringing up how these athletes will be on these all-star teams, and then they go to the Olympics, and you had Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan and all these other guys in the Olympics, and they're playing up against these teams that probably had no idea what basketball was, or maybe they did, and they were just wishing that they could be like Jordan, and we won every single game. It's like, oh, America won. Oh,
oh yeah. I mean, up until a certain point, we didn't have our pros play in the Olympics. We had the college.
Yep.
Did, and then one year we lost, and they were like, we can't have that ever happen again.
All right, let's see here. Do you want to go? Okay, so I'm going to give you an option. You pick one or the other, and the one that you don't pick we'll answer right after. So I'm giving you the option of glycemic index and carb sensitivity / sugar spiking to cover that one. Or do you want to talk about best way to come off a long cut and try to ensure maintenance of the fat loss?
So that will I'll do the insulin glycemic index first, and then the other one, because that'll go into reverse dieting. I know someone probably asked about that.
Oh, yeah.
So we can talk about that a little bit, because that was first meant for people coming off a cut, and now it's been used the wrong way, and I've seen around the internet. So let's start with the insulin glycemic index. So insulin, people have kind of demonized this. Insulin's released by the pancreas in response to like your blood sugar going up. So when you eat carbs, you're going to produce insulin.
Right, it's a natural thing.
Yeah. So the reason why people kind of if you look at all these diets and the ones I was doing when I said I was making mistakes, I was trying to control insulin. And I thought because insulin's a hormone, it's a storage hormone too. So it can help you build muscle a little bit. It also can help you store fat. So when you eat carbs, insulin increases and fat's more likely to be pushed into adipose, so your fat tissue. It's kind of false. You don't need insulin to put fat into adipose, but it does preferentially do that. Consuming dietary fat, though, also equals more fat in your adipose tissue. So carb on its own is not likely to be stored straight as fat. It's when you combine carb and fats where it's pushing that into adipose tissue. But dietary fats readily stored as body fat as well, so in adipose tissue. So when all the keto people are talking about if you're on a high-fat diet, they're saying, "Oh, I'm using fat for fuel, you're burning more fat." They're not wrong. They are burning more fat, but they're storing more fat. So this is really why the total energy balance matters. So if it's controlled and you're on a high-carb diet, you're going to produce more insulin, but you would be eating less fat for the insulin to push in. So you're not going to have as much fat for the insulin to push into the adipose. If you were on a high-fat diet, you would have less insulin available for storage, but eating more fat is going to equal more storing fat. This is why the total energy balance. So energy balance is your calories. If that's controlled, it's really the net effect that's mattering. It's not that acute response to insulin that's going to matter. So kind of summarizing that, like a high-fat diet, you're going to burn more fat, but you're going to store more fat. A high-carb diet, you're going to burn less fat, you're going to store less fat, you're going to burn more carbs, and you're going to store more carbs. So the whole insulin thing is really not as big of a deal as it's made to be seemed, like Gary Taubes would tell you.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I'm sorry if I went too.
No, I love the breakdown. I mean, in a sense, I guess I totally get it. I think it's something that can be blown out of proportion completely, and people think too hard about.
Yeah, they definitely do. And then like kind of the slow carbs versus like a high digesting carb, like a white rice versus brown. The net effect of insulin they've shown is pretty much close to like to actual carb intake. It's just how it's the speed at which it's digested. So I don't have like an exact number to give to this, but let's just make a fake number. So let's say that I eat white rice and it spikes my insulin up to 4, and 4 is just a made up number, to 4 over 1 hour, and then it drops back to baseline in an hour. It digested. So insulin was spiked pretty high. If you ate that same amount of carb in, say, brown rice, so a slower digesting, say you would be like 1 over 4 hours and then return to baseline. If you look at the net insulin was the same.
Okay.
So it might matter for satiety. That's about it, though.
How about would this play into people who are all about? You might recall once upon a time when I first started getting into counting macros, I made the mistake of watching a movie that said you need to stay away from sugar.
Yep. Yeah. That sugar intakes, again, it's every time there should never be a single factor kind of a villain for obesity. It used to be fat, sugar, carbs in general, sugar. The way that if you look at it, it's really not mattering overall. Those are probably like correlation studies. You look at, people always talk about the sugar in foods and that's why it's making us fat, but I'm trying to think of something like straight sugar. Like I don't crave Pixie Sticks. I crave, usually it's like a fat and sugar mix.
Yeah.
And most of those calories are coming from fat in those. Even if you look at like any carb, like look at chips, people that crave chips and they say, oh, the carbs. Well, it's the fat and the carbs. That combination equals yummy for people, and that's the reason. And the calories are mostly actually coming from fat in these.
Yeah, well, that's where a lot of the flavor's coming from, is the fat.
Yeah, and if you look at the calorie breakdown, most of the calories are from fat. So just saying that there is a correlation, but now we have these readily available readily available and very appetizing foods that I think is the reason.
And if you step back from all the mumbo jumbo, it's really moderation. It's always going to be moderation. It isn't, I'm going to, if you eat that, you could get the small bag. If you eat the small bag of chips on the sofa there, oh my gosh, the carbs will get you. No, if you eat that small bag, I believe that small bag is a decent 1 serving. And that's different from if you get the jumbo size bag, and before you know it, you sat through an entire movie and ate that entire bag. Now, granted, if you were to sit there and do that, this is my bro science working for me here. So if I'm wrong, please correct me. But if you eat that whole bag in one sitting, just that one day, it shouldn't hit you too hard. But if you were to make, hey, this weekend, let's watch 5 movies. Okay, great. So Saturday, Sunday comes through, Monday, you weigh yourself in, you're going to put on some weight. I mean, Monday, Tuesday, you're going to notice that the scale's going to change because why? You ate like 3 bags of jumbo-sized chips.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not going to put on much fat in like a 24-hour period. Probably should think about it more in like a 7-day. 24-hour energy balance does matter, but it's more that weekly if you want to look at it.
It's like breaking the routine.
Yeah, so a big bag won't, but like say you're trying to lose weight and you're in a deficit of 100 a day, and then all of a sudden you eat that big bag of chips and you might have just ate your deficit for the week out. So that's one of the things that you got to be careful about. But like with Lane and kind of how you and I know each other, the If It Fits Your Macros crowd, that to me was awesome because I understood that's what simplified it. I understood why I was gaining fat or why I was losing fat. But what I see is kind of the mistake is people, so they calculate their macros and they say, man, there's no way I can get to 1,800 calories. I can't diet on 1,800. I'm going to go crazy. When I think the response should be, okay, how could I diet on 1,800 and not be crazy? And the answer then is almost kind of a little bit like a bro diet. So people love kind of being liberated from it if it fits your macros. Like I can still have ice cream, and that is true, but it should probably be about 10 to 20% of your diet should be kind of those junk foods. I don't like that I'm calling it junk food, but those type of foods. And the majority of your diet should come from, fruits, vegetables, lean meat, and you'd probably be more likely to adhere to those 1,800 calories. So for me, what helped was I calculated my macros, didn't think I could survive on 1,800 cutting on that. But when I was eating, 3 bags of the family size vegetables a day, I did not have any trouble dieting on that.
Yeah, I save the your junk food. I like to save that for later because then I concentrate on eating the good things during the day, stay on track that way so I don't wander off. And then when I get home, what am I trying to say here? I have stuff at home, but there's more of it at work. Does that make sense? There's more of the bad stuff at work because you can wander around. Where I work, I can wander around and everybody's office has a candy jar. They've got there's free sugar everywhere I go at work, and everybody, I have some doctors that will just say they'll bring the stuff in because they don't want it in their house, so it's always in the break room. So it's really hard to, at first, when you want to get back on track with the cutting, to put up the blinders, So I have to get in the routine of, okay, I'm going to eat what I'm bringing to work, which, it was hard at first, but now I'm like, okay, I got my food here. Boom. When I get home, I got the Fiber One bars, which are great because, they're brownies, and that's just like, oh, yes, it's so good. And then Connie gets these Kashi cookie breakfast cookies, which are amazing. I don't know if you've ever had one, but they're like, oh, you have? Yeah, they're just, they're fucking good. And all this other stuff. But we don't have oodles of it. So in my mind, I know I can't go overboard with it because it won't be there the next day. So I want to make it last. How do I make it last? I portion it.
Yep. And I like that because some people do that. They portion it and want it to last, and they like a little each day. Me, like I that doesn't do it for me, having a little bit. I like to binge. Like I like to eat a whole pizza. I'm not going to have 2 pieces of pizza. So what I'll do is if I know I'm Sunday, let's say I want to eat a whole pizza, I can put myself in the deficit plus that and have kind of like a little bit of like a storage. I'll have a little bit left in storage, so I'll give myself 1,000 or 1,500 calories of a deficit, and then I can eat that pizza. So you can use it both ways. Some people like you want to have a little each day. Some of them want to be able to have that binge without it ruining their diet.
We went over to my parents last night because my mom got a new puppy, and they were having pizza, and first I thought it was my dad making the pizza, which his pizza's pretty decent. I enjoy it. But then when we got there, I found out that they were ordering it from this restaurant that I love. And so what Connie and I did was we made food before we went there and ate it here. We actually had dinner here. We had chicken and some other stuff, but we left enough room in our diet to have just a little bit of pizza. So when the pizza actually arrived, I was like, "Oh, hell yeah!" Which the fact that I ate before I went there was great because I definitely met my macros and I didn't go. I think I might have gone over a little bit on my calories, but it's not enough to be like, oh, I destroyed myself. No, but uh, it was enough food that by the time I was going to eat that third piece of pizza, and these aren't big pieces that I was eating, I was so full that I was like, I'm going to explode.
Yeah. See, and that I like that. I think it's understanding. So that's the best part about understanding macros is you can do it either way. And what happens with these ones, so like we can talk a little bit about. So if it fits your macros, it's just understanding energy balance, calories mattering ultimately for weight gain or weight loss. There are diets, so like elimination diets, and elimination diets, they do work. If I the problem, so I would do an elimination diet and get good results. But I would think that I was misattributing reasons why that elimination. I would say, oh, it was because I increased my fat intake and I was only eating slow carbs and I had zero sugar and insulin. So that's where it gets a little dangerous because for back of letter terms, they call it actually in some scientific circles, they call it like the fuck it principle. So as soon as I violate one of the rules of my elimination diet, like let's say I was doing no sugar, I had a little bit of sugar. Well, that person now says, fuck it, I've already done it. I'm going to have 20 cookies. Instead of saying, okay, this one cookie's not going to do shit, they've already broken the rules, so they might as well indulge. And that's where I think the knowledge of understanding calories really is beneficial.
Yeah, I've talked about that before on previous episodes where there are those diets out there that they'll work, but if you're not careful, it's a very slippery slope when you do what you just said because then they're just like they really do get into the fuck it mode. They're like, fuck it.
Yeah, that's true. But I think we can take, like, if it fits your macros, can take a little bit from those elimination diets too. Like if you get these macros, and we see it, and I love everybody in our group that we have, but there's some people that complain about their macros. There's no way I can do this. Maybe you need to change up what you're eating. Maybe this isn't the time to try like fitting in chips in an ice cream sandwich and all that. Maybe this is time to try to eat as many vegetables as you can in a day.
Yeah. When I first went with Gary and Patrick on Affinity, after I switched from Avatar to them, I was like, oh my gosh, they upped my carbs. Holy crap. Because I wasn't going by computer anymore and I didn't have Coach Delta. They were doing everything for me. And they said, here, have, I went from like 70, no, wait, I was in the 90s, I think, for carbs.
Oh,
And so, yeah, it was really low. And so they took me from like the 90s and bumped me all the way up to like, I think maybe 180 or something like that. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I think it was right around my son's birthday because we had some birthday cake. And so I was thinking, if it fits your macros, let's bump that into this thing. Because Connie was saying, you have enough carbs that if you wanted, you can do. I had eggs, I had bacon, I had some sausage, and then I had a piece of birthday cake on the side. And I think I took the picture and shared it on Facebook. And Patrick gave me a GIF file of a referee blowing the whistle.
That's awesome. Oh, I don't think he's ate a vegetable in his life. He's still looking good.
Yeah, that man is a beast.
He really is. Other than that sumo deadlifting he does.
Oh, we're going to get into that later.
I don't know if I could incriminate myself with that, but yeah, okay.
So,
wrapping that up, I think that was about the insulin and just carbs. So just to summarize that, basically if protein and fiber are controlled, eat carbs and fat how you want to hit your calorie for the day.
That was a nice
daily
wrap.
caloric needs. Just protein's important. The other ones just you figure out what you like to eat.
Exactly. That's how I think. I think, okay, I'm going to hit my protein for sure with dabbling a little bit in the carbs and the fat throughout the day, but I want to make sure that by the day's over, I have hit that protein. And then usually by the time I hit that protein, I've got so many carbs and fat left over that I'm just like, what do I want to have? How's it going to fit?
Yes, that's why high protein diets work. It's a high satiating, high thermic effect of food. If you tell someone just hit your protein, they're probably more likely to be within their calories for the day just by eating their daily protein. So I think that's just an easy way to start.
And then you get to treat yourself at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So now that we've wrapped that up and put a nice bow on it for anybody who wants to have a pickle with that issue, there you go. Happy holidays. It's a little late. We're going into February almost. And anyway, so now that we've wrapped up on that, this is going to lead into, okay, I've done my cut. I've had a high protein diet. Now I want to start eating normal again. But how do I start eating, and I'm using quotation marks here, normal again, and maintain everything that I lost?
Yeah, so I would say and this is going to go. I'm going to go right into reverse dieting after that. There's different ways to do this. So after dieting, there's certain systems in your body that need to recover. I really like Eric Helms. If you look him up, I think they're called 3DMJs, is something like that. He calls it the recovery diet. It's essentially, though, calculating your new maintenance. So if you knew your maintenance based on your body weight when you were just maintaining, I would kind of divide the calories by that and calculate your new maintenance and go straight into the new maintenance. That's the best way. So you don't want to binge after, because you could put on weight if you don't want to put that all on, but I would go into your new maintenance. So this is kind of why reverse dieting is used too. So Lane is who popularized this, and basically he would slowly add calories back in after a cut. So after a competition, he was working with bikini competitors and slowly added in. So I think what this did and why it worked in quotation marks is because people were able to kind of figure out what their new maintenance was. Before, how would people, if you didn't know what your maintenance was pre-dieting, they really didn't have a way to calculate it. So it was kind of a nice way to figure it out. And then people, though, were losing weight on their way back up in a reverse diet, which was probably, again, because they were in a calorie deficit. Not probably, they are. If you're losing weight, you're in the calorie deficit. If you're not losing weight, you are not in a calorie deficit. There's no way around it. Your metabolism, it's an open chain system, but ultimately you're not in a calorie deficit if you're not losing weight.
It's a simple equation. It's calories in, calories out. If you have more calories going out, which means you're working pretty hard and burning a lot, and you're not taking in as much, you're going to be in a deficit, which means you're going to be losing weight. But if you find that balance, that means that you're taking in just as much as you are losing, and then you'll see the scales level out.
Yeah. So I think if you are interested in it, Eric Helms will speak to this way better than I could. But the recovery diet, which I think he's essentially finding your new maintenance and tells you how you can do that. That's essentially what a reverse diet was doing, or the reason it works. So it is as a method. Reverse dieting makes sense maybe if you're trying to find your new maintenance. But, and this is what I would want to talk about, it was being heralded as stuff that it wasn't. So it originally was for these bikini competitors that would come off a long, hard diet, and there was proponents saying that there's something called metabolic damage and a reverse diet could fix this. So I'm going to go into this pretty deep, if that's okay.
Oh, go for it. I want deep.
Okay. And again, like people, there's still like Lane and a couple other people that believe in the reverse dieting and metabolic damage to an extent that could school me on this. So I'm just kind of talking from I've heard from people that don't believe in it, like Lyle McDonald, Eric Helm, a couple other bodybuilding type coaches. So when you do a long diet or when you're on these low calories, it does affect different hormones. So leptin's a big one. So leptin signals to your brain and other places in your body about the energy source that you have available and how much you've been eating. And when it drops it can induce kind of what people are calling metabolic damage, or you remember the starvation mode thing? People said
Yeah, you
your
reach the
body's in heavy mode, you
calories.
need to feed it more. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I would say this is incorrect, because this is just a normal adaptation that's going to happen when you're dieting. When you're dieting, you're going to have several adaptations. And your body does do some things to protect itself, because your body's not trying to, your body doesn't give a shit if you look good on stage or at the beach. It just wants to make sure that you are that you're surviving. It's evolutionary. But so when you have this falling leptin, things are going to occur. Like your metabolic rate goes down. You might get hungry. You get tired and lethargic. Thyroid test. A lot of shit goes wrong. So now when you're looking at like your metabolic rate, some of these things are just going to happen because you're dieting, because you're losing weight. So here are like the things that matter in your total metabolism. Is like your BMR, which is just your basal metabolic rate. That's just the normal processes and how much calories you burn just to keep your body, just by sitting around, you would have this. And then there's TEF, so thermic effect of food. So that's the calories you burn from eating. It's not that much. It's like 10%, but it matters on the, like protein has a high TEF, and so does fiber. And then there's TEE, which is thermic effect of exercise. So that's what you're burning during exercise. And the big one, I think, and people don't really think about this much, is called NEAT, so non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So this is different than just like what you do when you're exercising. It's just from moving around, fidgeting, changing positions all day.
Sure.
And that one you can't really think about it like fidgeting even all day. You're burning more calories than if you're dieting, you're going to be a little bit more lethargic and not doing that. So that one you can't actually kind of be conscious about, but that's going to drop. So all this stuff is going to change when you're dieting, when you lose weight. So that's kind of when people are saying, okay, that's the metabolic damage, because that's going to all go down. How would I explain kind of why that would think it's damage? Okay, so let's say you lost 20 pounds, and based on the math, all the stuff that goes down. So you burn, your BMR goes down just by being lighter. Like a heavier body is going to burn more calories at rest than a lighter body. So let's say you lost 20 pounds. We did all the math, and drop in the metabolic rate should. But when we look at it, you're actually seeing a reduction of 15%. So the drop in metabolic rate is greater than what the body weight and all the other things that should have been. And so there's an extra like 5% of that adaptive component of metabolic rate. And then that's when hormone stuff gets out of whack. So that's what they were saying is the metabolic damage part. But looking at some of the studies done about even when that was happening, you ever heard of the Minnesota starvation one?
No.
So they put these guys on 50% of their maintenance calories. They were like forced to do daily activity like walking. And it was a metabolic ward study. Metabolic ward means like controlled in a lab, and it was a 6-month long study. And they got these guys down to pretty crazy weights. It had to be observed, because I mean, make sure these guys didn't die.
Hang on, back up, Chris. There was a little break in the feed there. You kind of blipped out. You said that it was a study, and they had these guys at 50% of their maintenance, but they had them doing different things. I didn't hear what kind of things. Some guys were walking around. So
just forced daily activity. They didn't do any weight training.
Oh, okay. So just stuff that everybody does every day. Just walk around, do normal things.
Yeah, but at 50%, because at 50% your maintenance, they probably and they were continually calculating the maintenance. So if they lost 10 pounds, they recalculate the maintenance, meaning that 50% is different. So these guys were observed. It was a metabolic ward study. They were making sure these guys didn't die, basically. But what they found was, so the drop in metabolic rate was like 50% by the end of this one. And 80% of it had been offset. So like I wish I had the numbers. But basically, the lighter bodies are burning less calories. There's no getting around that. But they were still losing weight because they were in a calorie deficit. So these claims of like metabolic damage, these people that can't lose weight on 1,200 calories after long dieting, I think it's kind of unfounded based on a lot of these studies.
I was listening to a podcast episode where a nutritionist from Mount Zion Hospital was interviewed. And he said something along the same lines as you did, that I mean, everybody's going to have different numbers, but when it comes to fat loss and everything, it unless you have some weird hormone level thing going on, everybody should be able to lose weight. It's just you have to find what works, and you got to get things regulated correctly. Really, I mean, but
yeah,
that
it's
also
still going to
plays
slow fat loss. Like in my example, like if you expected, a 20% drop based on the math, and it was actually 30, you're going to have slower. So like your deficit could only be like 10% based on that. So yeah, it could slow the stuff down, but it's really not. And in those cases too, it's really, this is for the competitors. So like when they're super lean and they get to that level of leanness, you would probably expect to see this more. But what you and I started seeing was this reverse dieting being to obese individuals who said that they cannot lose weight, and reverse dieting was being prescribed for that.
correct.
And that's where I think I really didn't understand what's going on. Because if you can look at the studies. So what they've done this, and I don't have the exact statistics, but it's unbelievable. If you look, so obese individuals said they couldn't lose weight, they would underreport calories by up to 50%, which is huge. Think about that, 50%. And then they overreported like their activity of what they thought they burned. So, when you go to these calorie counters and all this, and they say your activity, these people that are barely doing anything are saying that they're highly active, and they're not even counting their calories correctly. So if we, and a lot of these coaches are over the internet. So if you have someone who's overweight and they're saying, I can't lose weight, why are you thinking that it's from a metabolic adaptation versus them underreporting their calories? They're underreporting their calories and overreporting their activity. I don't understand how that is even a thing for them. The
Correct.
competitor thing, maybe argue that, but I would 99.9% of the times it's underreporting calories.
I think what you're getting at is the average Joe on the internet who wants to lose weight, or Jane, who they try the calculators out, they do Avatar, they do this, they do that. They get part of the equation wrong, and what that does is it throws everything off, and then they think, this isn't working for me.
Yeah, they're not reporting the 3 cookies they had. They forget about that, or they aren't calculating how much rice they actually ate. They're eyeballing, even though they've never counted calories before. There's more likely that's the fact.
And Josh and Larry and myself did a recording of, we're talking about, we covered If It Fits Your Macros and how it started out as an amazing concept, and today it has blown into overthinking, asking too many questions that have already been asked that you can easily search, and just people who think it's overthinking. You are overthinking it. People saying, well, this is a 500-gram dish, but how do I know I'm getting the right amount of protein out of this recipe that's in MyFitnessPal, blah, 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 stuff like that. And then that, I'm sorry that I'm going to say this, and there's probably going to be people that are going to turn off and stop listening to my podcast, but these are the people that have become stupid, because people have held their hand this whole time and have fed them bullshit.
Exactly. And so the leaders of some of these If It Fits Your Macros groups, they kind of don't understand that counting calories is a skill. It requires knowledge and experience. So if I was training someone and they want to learn how to squat, I'm not going to put 225 on the bar and say hit 5. That's kind of what happens with these people that sign up for these calculators. They don't know how to calculate. The knowledge isn't there. I'm all for tracking, but I don't know that. I think giving them macros and telling them to count is kind of like putting 225 on the bar. So one of the
Correct.
things I didn't mention this, I'm pursuing a certification with Precision Nutrition. And one of the things they advocate, and I think is really cool, they have a system for tracking, and they say take a picture of everything you eat every week. So put it in a separate folder in your iCloud, upload it to, your Google Docs, and, as a coach or whoever, they would look at it and you can do a self-reflection. So that's a form of tracking. They say, okay, did I lose weight this week? Did I gain weight? Okay, what did I eat this week? What should I improve on? Should I add veggies and subtract more of this? That's a form of tracking, and it makes more sense for people who aren't familiar with it. So I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. There's trying to calculate macros and then getting fancy with it. Like, don't try to eat the Pop-Tart yet. Like, that's later on.
Yeah, because they hear that you can eat the donut, you can eat this, you can eat that, but then it throws everything off because they've totally screwed up numbers from the get-go, and they're talking about, I'm actually gaining weight. Well, let's back up. Let's start from step one now. Let's go back to that dry erase board and erase everything you've done so far and start from step one.
Yeah, and you used to see it too. People get their macros, they hear they can eat the donuts, and it's 11:30 and they've ate 90% of their macros already, and they're like, wait, how am I ever going to do this? So I don't like that. You're not teaching the fundamentals before you get them to the, like, if it fits your macros of fitting in those food. Teaching the fundamentals is important before you start just letting them go with macros. It's ridiculous.
So getting back to reverse dieting, so the concept was a great concept for people who were properly following their calories, knew their maintenance, knew when they were in a deficit, and reverse dieting was there it was a concept utilized to bring them back gradually to where they would be so that they didn't fall off that cliff.
Yeah. And what they're saying, like, and I think calculating new maintenance would be the way to go. I've never competed, so I don't know, but that's, with Eric Helms and other people recommending it. But what they were saying is that it's metabolic damage that happened, that if you calculated your new maintenance and went straight into it, it would lead to like a disproportionate weight gain. And you would start gaining fat because your body has this damage done to it, or the adaptation. So the reverse diet lets your body recover and get back to kind of that it's normal BMR and all that. I don't know what I think about that.
So then how did what was the theory then for all these people saying, I'm not losing weight? They got their numbers wrong, for one thing. Maybe exactly. They got, but then they have them reverse diet.
Yeah, and I guarantee if you had Lane talk about it, and if he saw what was happening, he did this with female bikini competitors specifically, and that would make a little bit, like, at least defending him a little bit, that would make sense. Like that Minnesota Starvation study, that was done in all males, and there's probably some things with female bodies do hold on to weight because of evolutionary things a little differently. So Lane, at least I understood why he would do it, and a lot of anecdote of him coaching. But then when it was for the general public, or people just saying over the internet that they couldn't lose weight, I don't know how people reached the conclusion that it was because of metabolic damage.
You mean the one company that used to be the standard answer for anybody and everybody for the longest time?
Yeah. Yes. That was interesting. And you look at it and be like, okay, just because you see that they're reporting that they ate in a 200 calorie deficit every day doesn't mean that they actually did. Don't give them more calories. And sometimes when that would work, but you would have people then that would work, right? So what would happen would be, like, you would have a strictly filed, like, let's say you were on 1600 and you were really eating 2000, you were really eating 2000 calories every day, but you thought you were eating 1600. But now all of a sudden I give you 200 more calories. Maybe just the mental break from that and being on higher made you more strictly count that. So it was a better counted 1800 calories versus a poorly counted 1600. I think that would explain why reverse dieting was working for some people too.
That's actually a very good thing that you brought up. The whole mental thing going on. when you know that your calories are being cut so low. You've never been there before. Well, at least you don't think you've been there before. It's which I got so many thoughts in my head right now. The one thought I have is when I started counting calories, I thought, oh man, I'm having my calories reduced. I don't know what I'm going to do. But then the amount of food I could still eat with that calories was still amazing. I mean, it's all in what you want to eat. And what am I trying to say here, Chris? You don't have to make it that bad. It doesn't have to be that bad. But at the same time, you don't want to just eat anything and everything, like if it fits your macros, because in that sense, because then depending on what you're eating, you're ruining the rest of your day. And I think we already talked about that, because at the end of the day, you're gonna be like, well, I don't have that much left over now that I've eaten all this other stuff. Not to mention, you got the people that don't understand it from the get-go and eat all this sugary stuff, and they've already hit their calories, and you still have 100 grams of protein left to hit.
Yeah, exactly. So that was frustrating seeing that, like a reverse diet being advised for people that were inexperienced with even counting macros to go to that. But when it did work too, and that I talked about that, so I would get results from different things and I would misattribute it to it. So now they've got these people who think that they need to reverse, and when it worked, they're thinking it's because they just boosted their metabolic rate through something. And that I don't see that. I think what happens really is, so like if you look at a reverse diet, you're starting to add by like 50 to 100 calories. Do you know how hard it is to count 50 to 100 calories different? That's such a low number. So basically what happens is a poorly controlled 1500 calories becomes a well-controlled 1575. So that's really what's happening here. And I wish people understood that, and that it's not, you're not just boosting your metabolism like crazy by doing this reverse diet.
That's a great conversation. I'm glad we covered that.
And that actually would bring it into, I think I saw, wasn't it Connie that asked about the Matador study?
Let's take a look here. Connie. I remember a long time ago he posted about a 2-week cut maintenance intervals. I'd like more info on that strategy if he has it. Advantages, disadvantages, and their specific populations this is more effective for. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So that was it's called the Matador. It was a Matador study. So they took, it was a decent study. I think it was like 40 people, and it was like what was it? It was a 16-week diet, and it was looking at the difference between a continuous 16 weeks versus 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, totaling 16 weeks of dieting. So those people, they had total 16 weeks of dieting, but some people were straight for 16 weeks and some people were on and off for 2 weeks. So they found that the people in the intermittent one lost more weight and they gained less of it back. I think it was like, and it was a lot. It was like the intermittent group had like 16 pounds more than the continuous diet group 6 months after the diet, which was pretty cool. So basically what they were doing with them was they put them in a 30% deficit. So the 16 straight group was in a 30 deficit for 16 weeks, and they were recalculating as they lost weight. And then the other one, they would be in a 30% deficit for 2 weeks, go back to maintenance and calculate the maintenance based on their body weight. I don't know what calculation they did for that. And then they would go back into a 30% deficit. So there's probably a couple things into it. That could be, just the hormone component that we talked about, the leptin. Might help people just for like their sanity. Like 16 weeks of 30% is pretty tough for people. So maybe just being able to go back and forth with it. But I thought that was pretty interesting, and it's not a bad idea for people that are struggling.
It sounds to me like some of these studies present some great answers, but still leave a lot to be known. Like there's just so much science and so much. The human body has so much to it that these studies can only tell us so much.
Yeah, and what's good about these researchers, like they understand that though. So people that pick and choose and they look at studies, they think of it as a finished puzzle when the researchers are doing this and they're producing a puzzle piece. And it's just a piece of the puzzle, and there's all these different studies, and when you put them together, you start getting closer to that puzzle. I don't think we're ever going to have a puzzle fully finished, and that's where those like meta-analysis, which look at a bunch of studies that have similar controls, similar objectives of what they're trying to test. But this is a good puzzle piece. It's not going to tell me that this is how everybody should eat, but it's a really good puzzle piece, and I think that's how people need to, when they're reading studies or they're seeing a study reported in the news, understand that it's not conclusive. Studies don't really tell you the best way to do something. They kind of will come up with a second worst way to do something, which is good though. We need to know that.
Yeah, because then you try it and you find out, well, that's shit.
Yeah. But they're just trying to understand the second worst way. They're testing it against another way. So there might be 20 better ways to do this one, but we know based on this study, it would say that an intermittent diet for this population was superior than continuous calorie restriction for 16 weeks.
So in a nutshell, advantages, disadvantages is just that doing diets can, based upon the amount of time you're going to do the diet, how much you're cutting out, could throw off certain hormone levels, which then could make the cutting a little bit more difficult. The bouncing back might be difficult, or it could be easy, depending on how thrown off those hormone levels are, like the leptin and everything.
Yeah, it makes some, like if those are actually boosted back, let's say, so you boost your hormone profile back by the 2-week break, that could help. But also it's kind of with your schedule, like, do you always know that those next 2 weeks I can be in a 30% deficit and then all of a sudden you have maintenance? It's almost like wanting to time that. Kind of hard to like get back into it. Remember how hard it was to go back to school after summer break for a little bit, or winter break?
Yeah.
Some people might have that same thing, like, shit, I got to go back, versus just getting it done with. But the thing that was interesting about this is it was controlled for 16 weeks of dieting, 16 weeks. And it showed and the calories, the deficit was controlled.
Mm-hmm.
It showed that it was superior for weight and fat loss.
There are times though that I wish I could go back to being in school instead of working. I know you had to write papers and everything, but Jesus, you got to sleep in most of the time. And
hell yeah.
Gosh, I miss sleeping in. I don't remember the last time I slept in.
I know. I really miss school. I miss college mostly.
I do miss college. I wish I could go back and redo some things. All right, let's see. When do you think the sequel to Good Will Hunting is coming out?
Who said I look like Matt Damon?
This is Dee Dee. I've never talked to her, but Dee Dee wants to know.
She's awesome. I think she thinks I look like Matt Damon.
I could see it, in an alternate reality, maybe.
Maybe my head shape.
Now, you know what? I think you could look like the Matt Damon from Dogma.
Oh yeah, I'll take that.
I could see you as that kind of Matt Damon if you put on a hoodie.
I'll take that.
Let's see. No, there's got to be another question here. Okay, I like to think that I'm always learning and adapting. 0 of my training principles are my own. I like Jeff Nippard, Jeff Cavalier. Is that his name?
X. Yeah, the dude from Athlean X.
And my current favorite is the Hypertrophy Coach. Oh my gosh, yeah, John Riley loves the Hypertrophy Coach. Last episode I did with him, he was talking a lot of hypertrophy techniques. Who does Chris like to take ideas from? And what is with this TIA thing? I can't remember what that's about. Connie's going to tell me later. Somebody will tell me when they hear this episode.
TIA. Think in advance.
Thanks in advance. And then Connie was asking why everybody's saying aunt in Spanish or something like that. And everybody's like, what?
John, you can't type out things in advance, man?
Yeah. Well, because he's getting older and it's easier to, use letters.
I got it.
I shouldn't say that. This guy is a beast, man.
Oh, he is. Man, he really is. So is James Anderson, even though he's getting old and can't see things. trying to question my plates. I had to like zoom in and circle him for him, but he's a beast too. So
Oh yeah, James. Oh yeah, he does strongman competitions, right?
yeah, I can't say much. He's holding boulders, and I think he'd wrap me and bear choke me if I said too much.
Yeah, I mean, because you work in healthcare, he works in healthcare, I work in healthcare,
Mhm.
so we should all like go to some convention together, and that would be a fun outing.
It would. That'd be awesome.
So back
So
to
yeah, so
who?
I like the hypertrophy coach. I like Jeff Nippard a lot. So Jeff Nippard, really good. He breaks down studies. I think if you look at his YouTubes, he's very good at putting into layman terms and breaking down studies. People really respect him. He has his podcast, and he's done interviews with some of the people I was talking about, like Eric Helms, who I like. I really like Eric Helms. He just came out with a revamped of what is those called, like his pyramid training principles, which is
Uh-huh.
awesome. I would say anyone should get that. He's Dr. Eric Helms. I like Lane. I like his personality. Some of the stuff he goes a little nuts on, but I kind of like that. I think you kind of need that to offset the bro science and the crappy pyramid scheme science. So he's great. Um, who else did he said? He said Jeff Nippard. Oh, and the hypertrophy coach. I liked it. I had his app for a while, but I lift in my gym and I don't have all the machines and the double cable pulleys and stuff that he likes.
Hmm.
So I'm not using him a ton. I actually like a guy named Corey Gregory. He kind of he's not scientific based. It's total bro stuff, but I like it. He just has kind of training ADD. He likes doing the conjugate method and also like old school bodybuilding stuff. So I like using him just when I'm in a rut. But for my information, definitely Jeff Nippard, Mike Matthews. That's what every beginner I think should read. Thinner, leaner, stronger, and bigger, leaner, stronger. He's also a guy that kind of breaks it into layman's terms. So those are probably my favorite people.
Okay, all right. Let's see. We've got Eden. Well, actually, this is Larry speaking for Eden. Larry says that Leiden. Let's just call it Leiden because it's Larry and Eden combined. Leiden says, "Can you please demonstrate the proper use of a sponge in the shower while you are listening to Pour Some Sugar on Me?" And a bunch of ladies are saying, "Yes, please do that."
It might, if it's gonna have to be for something that no one's listened to me about. That's how I'll get my point across.
It's really hard to demonstrate that Leiden over a podcast. We'd have to have like a video cast, you know. It's
Maybe our
so.
follow-up one, we'll meet up in Rockford and do it.
Oh yeah, Rockford. Yeah, that's actually a good idea. You know, it's amazing that we live so close and we have yet to actually do anything.
Yeah, we're gonna get a lift in. We'll put that on the next podcast.
Kind of scared doing a lift with you.
I'm not that strong. Don't worry. You'll kill me.
All right. I don't have any more questions. That's it for my questions. Is there anything that you would like to discuss that you want to get off your chest as far as people out there saying things, doing things, and you're just like, why are you doing this?
Let's see. I'm trying to think of just some of the common myths or just BS you see. High protein diet, I love that. People say it's bad for the kidneys. They've done studies on that. Patients with renal problems should probably avoid a high protein diet, but they've showed healthy individuals do not need to do that. That's kind of how it happens in a lot of cases, that it's people correlate. So if I say it's bad for your kidney function to, if you already have renal problems, to eat a high protein diet, people think, oh, it must slow down and my renal function if I have a high protein diet otherwise, which isn't true.
No,
it doesn't mean it's going to. It's just if you do have those problems already, you might want to
it's
avoid.
because the kidneys help clear out the protein, and when you're having problems with your kidneys, you shouldn't have high protein because it's not going to get cleared out.
Yeah. Yes. Let's see. God, social media is getting worse. So it used to be like GNC type guys, like I was with a lot of the bro science, and it's kind of like that. What's been awesome in that industry now, there's not proprietary blends. Stuff's all at the clinical study doses. So it kind of migrated, and who's being taken advantage of are these pyramid scheme people, which I hate. So the detoxes and the wraps and the cleanses and nutritional rebalancing, they don't understand what's going on.
Somebody
But
just
I think,
shared a cleanse photo the other day. It was like a side by side comparison of 4 months or something like that. And it was a combination of, I'm pretty sure they used some photoshopping techniques.
yeah,
And they must have
like,
really put a lot of makeup on because to lose that much weight, Jesus.
and it wasn't because of a cleanse or a detox. So you can't, it doesn't make sense. Like so you work in the medical field. So if people come in and they need to be detoxed for something, it's not like a broad spectrum detox. Like, so if you had like a drug overdose, like sometimes vitamin K is what's used to detox your body of something, or there's different things that are prescribed for a certain reason. There's no broad spectrum detox. So these people that are just, it's like aloe vera and whatever the hell's in these bullshit colon cleanses. It doesn't even make sense. Your body naturally does it. So your liver, um, your body's doing this naturally. It's detoxing and cleansing itself. There's not really evidence showing that these supplements can speed it up like to like a super physiological level.
Correct. Yeah. We have what are called organs. They are, people, if you haven't taken an anatomy and physiology course, you have a heart, you have a liver, you have a kidneys, you've got gallbladder, you got all sorts of things that are inside you, and they all do amazing things that make you alive.
Yeah. And so those people actually really anger me because I'm going to go on a little rant before we go on that. I don't like, so there's enough information out there. Examine.com's awesome. The people I mentioned, the Dr. Eric Helms, Alan Argot, and Schoenfeld, people with diet and supplements that you should kind of rely on for this information. These people that are doing it, not only are they taking advantage of people to sign up for their memberships and the pyramid schemes, they're also trying to get them in to sell for them. So financial obligations. So it really makes me mad that they're taking advantage of people that are not only like knowledge and they want to lose weight, they're vulnerable in that aspect, but also financially vulnerable. Put them in
Hmm.
that position at the same time. So I think in general, if they're trying to do both to you, you should that should be a red flag. You shouldn't even talk to them. Because think about it. So you're trying to make them into. You're trying to tell these people they don't know what's best for them. Here's the supplements, and here's what you should do. Also, by the way, do you want to be a coach and help other people do it? Well, you just admitted you don't think that they know what they're doing is correct, and now you're going to tell them for $50 a month they can be a coach and sell their supplements and get their other friends to do it. It's
What's the
horrible.
first? What's the first thing people need to? They need to say, is it an MLM or what's it called?
Yes, but these people have great responses for that. Aren't all companies structured like that? No, this is not a pyramid scheme. It is. If you're
Yeah.
trying to get other people to sell for you and you're making money off of it, even if it's not technically a pyramid scheme, it's not what you should be looking at.
Uh,
These people on the internet are horrible. They're predators.
yeah, and excuse me. Yeah, they definitely feed off of the lack of knowledge people have, and they're the kind of people like the if it fits your macros people who don't understand anything and are told wrong information from the get go. They absorb it like a sponge. Hey, there's your use of sponge. Lead in sponge.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So and that's the problem. Like the keto thing, like keto in general doesn't make me angry. It's these people that are taking advantage and selling stuff that they don't even understand. And it's just, this is how falsehoods are spread. It used to be me spreading a little bit of falsehoods or definitely listening to falsehoods, and that's why it makes me mad. So
Yeah,
educate yourself.
you know
Help
that
people
you've
out.
made it into a fad diet when people have certain keto bars and all sorts of food that are branded, and the you got to spend an arm and a leg to buy that box of keto food to be safe
Yeah,
for your keto diet.
yeah, yeah. And it just, half the time these people aren't even doing keto. And then it's going to work sometimes too. And that's what I was talking about, the misattribution to keto working then. But like if I told someone to cut out a whole food group, they're going to automatically increase their protein intake. they're gonna might have initial like a satiating effect. They've shown, I think, initially especially, there's a satiation effect of eating keto-ish. So even if they're not in ketosis, they're increasing their protein and probably eating less calories, so they're going to see results. That's why you saw results, though. It's not because keto and burning fat for fuel. That, I guess that's the last thing I would want to say about the burning fat for fuel. That's kind of like you're not burning body fat per se. So you're storing more fat, you're burning more fat. Mm-hmm. So yes, you are burning more fat. It's almost like kind of like I have a gas car and I changed it to diesel. You're on a different fuel source, but that doesn't mean that you're burning more your fat mass. You're not burning more fat mass if calories are controlled versus a normal diet. And that's kind of where people don't understand it.
I think Patrick shared, he posted one day, this was a month or two ago, he was mentioning how so many people in his office were going keto. And he was giggling about it in his cubicle about how he was overhearing these ladies saying, "Oh yeah, I'm on this keto diet. Hey, you want to go eat this? Blah 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 blah." And it definitely would not be for a keto diet. And there's so many people out there that do exactly what you said. They think that they're doing the diet, but they're not doing the diet. And then because they are in fact in a calorie deficit, they're losing weight.
So keto, then all of a sudden keto works. And keto, there's a lot of reasons why someone should do keto. I'm not saying keto is bad. I'm just saying the people that are doing it a lot of time are doing it wrong, and they're spreading falsehoods, and that's tough. But it happens in all circles. So hopefully, I wish there was a mainstream option for people to get their info from. Keto's on the news, keto's on talk shows. There's really not a moderate view on dieting that's going to make a show, for the mainstream. And I wish that wasn't the case, but that's kind of what's going. We got the Dr. Oz is going to have on whoever's the newest fad.
Yep.
And that's where these people are getting their info.
And that's why keto is pushed on all these really obese people, because they say, all right, you want to see results in the fastest amount of time? Keto.
Yeah, it's tough. And even like, sorry, I'm going to go on a tangent too. I just was watching, you ever seen that show Adam Ruins Everything?
I've heard of it.
He did one on diets, and he cherry picked some studies and said diets don't work. Basically, it's your genetics. Sorry. Was the conclusion. It was ridiculous.
Oh,
and he cited that Biggest Loser study as the reason, like, oh, you're going to go back to your normal. Like, no, you're not. There was reasons why that Biggest Loser thing was problem. Jillian Michaels.
Yeah, I know that he's a guy that, I mean, there's a reason why it says ruins everything. He tries to take something and just obliterate it based upon stuff he's found. But that sounds like he didn't have the whole picture.
Yeah, definitely not. So there are people out there, those people I mentioned, seek that info from them.
Okay, I got a question for you that I was thinking about when you were talking about something a couple minutes ago before keto. How about creatine?
Creatine, I love it.
Let's talk about it. Oh, I remember, because you said protein is too hard on your kidneys. You got people who say that creatine is too hard on the kidneys as well, or you shouldn't do it. And then there's a very common question of, should I do creatine? What is the scientific backing of creatine? And what should I take? How much should I take? And should I do HCl or should I do mono? I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So creatine's what's awesome. It is by far the most studied sports supplement out there with positive results. There are such thing as creatine non-responders, but for the most part, you're looking at these studies. It has helped for people that are going to put on more muscle, strength. They're even showing cognitive benefits to it now. And it's just like protein. If you already have healthy kidneys, you shouldn't see any of those side effects. You're eating creatine, so it's common in like red meat. It's a combo of 3 amino acids. What is it? Glycine, arginine, and methionine or something. Back to my GNC days, I did know that. So the creatine, you're going to make it in your body already. Most of it doesn't even get to your muscle tissue. So like supplementing, it's not like an essential nutrient, but it's supplementing with it in doses. So with monohydrate, that's the most studied version. You can either take 5 grams daily and you should have it saturated in your body after about a week, or you could do a week, or after 2 weeks, I'm sorry, or you could do a week of like 20 grams and then a 5 grams. So it's basically just when your muscles will get it. It'll become saturated quicker if you load it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think creatine is, but you should look to it and see if you should take creatine. Most people should. Anyone doing resistance training, especially. And I think there might be a dose for it for some of the cognitive benefits and protective benefits. But they're saying maybe it could protect against Alzheimer's. I think it could be in our vitamins one day, like a multivitamin.
Oh, no, that's an idea. I'm surprised somebody hasn't already done that.
Yeah. And just so like people know it. So basically creatine does a lot of things, but the main thing that it does is it increases your ATP, which is an energy store in your body that's mostly used for like short bursts, so like strength training.
So energy output.
Yeah. So it's basically going to help with strength, which in turn should be able to help you with putting on muscle, because if you're able to lift more over time, mechanical tension's increasing, then you should be able to put on muscle. So I don't understand. Some people really don't like creatine. I don't know why. I used to, when I worked at GNC, I would always get a parent coming in and yelling why someone was on creatine, their kid.
You actually had parents come in and say, "Why is my kid taking creatine?"
Yeah, and like I couldn't ask for ID. I didn't know these kids are if they're 18 or not, and it wasn't illegal. And like this stuff's like steroids, and it doesn't. It's not a hormonal thing, you know.
You're not going to turn into the Hulk when you take creatine, and also, and this gets into the kind of creatine you're going to be taking. Are you doing HCl or are you going to do mono? Because if you're doing mono, that takes a while to build up, right?
What?
So, I mean, the effects of creatine, getting your energy to I mean, they say that there should be a loading phase for mono, but then sometimes you should just, some people don't do a loading phase because
so it's basically how quickly it'll work. So a loading phase should have it in about a week, where your muscles will be fully saturated, and if you just take a daily dose of around 5 grams, 2 weeks. So at that point, you should be seeing benefits.
But then you do HCl, and HCl is supposed to be the one that, this is the one that there's not a lot of scientific backing behind it, but it's water soluble, HCl, hydrochloride. So it's supposed to be absorbed faster, utilized easier.
Yeah, but it's more hydrochloride. What it does, it's easier on someone's stomach, but it being water soluble doesn't exactly mean anything.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So like, yeah, hydrochloride is just creatine. With all these are different things. They're just bound to different. Like creatine monohydrate versus like a buffer creatine. That one's a pH one. There's creatine ethyl ester used to be about where they went through like an esterification process. That one was interesting. HCl is the only one that actually has comparable results. So that's just creatine bound with, what is it, hydrochloric acid? You're better at that stuff than I am. So they thought it did increase like the water solubility, but it doesn't mean that it enhances like uptake or the performance benefit of it.
Oh, okay.
So, but maybe you have to take less, which can help with stomach issues.
I think that's what it is. I think you don't have to take as much. Also, they say that the HCl, you don't put on some water weight because the mono tends to have you retain some water.
Well, yeah, and people sometimes get bloated, but creatine, no matter what, it's going to do that. It's drawing water into the muscle too, which is benefit. So it's increasing ATP, and it also does bring fluid into the muscle cells. So that's good too.
Because Patrick, he sticks to HCl. Anybody who talks to me, he's like, "Oh, I do the HCl." I don't do the mono.
Yeah, I'm taking that same one, the GNC one. It's hard to mix. It tastes like ass, but
That was at the
I
concrete.
don't know. No, the Beyond Raw.
Oh,
Their
Beyond Raw.
line, they came out with a lot of that stuff.
Okay, so there is one more question that I want to go over, and let me just find it right here because I had it, and then hang on, it'll take me a second just to scroll here. And it is right here. Okay, found it. Okay, so are you ready, Chris?
Yes.
Is sumo really easier than conventional science-backed studies only, and who's well, I'm not going to ask that last part. It's a Patrick question. So
Yeah.
he wants science-backed studies, sumo or conventional?
Yeah, I'll tell you anecdotally, the bunch of cheaters that do that sumo thing. Your hands better be the outside of your legs. I mean, it's. I think this is a fun one. Like people that joke between sumo and that, like it's kind of a funny thing. Mark Bell always messes with people about this, which I think is funny. But I mean, if you can pull the weight up, you're pulling the weight up. I respect it.
Mm-hmm. Does it?
Sumo is better than not deadlifting at all, I guess.
True. And
I'm
I've
saying
heard
this to everybody in jest. This is not a scientific thing. I like to make fun of it.
it is. It's an ongoing joke because there's the group that does sumo, there's the group that does conventional, and then there's the guy that will only do conventional, and then there's the guy that will only do sumo. And the guy who does sumo always gets razzed because let's just yeah. Well, here's the thing though, he deserves it most of the time because he is who he is. He needs to be razzed.
Oh yeah.
You can't
Definitely.
be him without getting the razzing. Let's just face it.
Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before it's a rack pull sumo deadlift that he starts doing. I mean, why stop at cheating by doing sumo? There's a couple other ways you could do it.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to wear his new wig and everything else while he's doing the rack pull.
Yes.
Did you see that picture of him in the wig?
Yeah, that's great. He's gaining strength though, real quick. He's putting up some, especially in the upper body.
Oh yeah, with the competition that he's starting up with everybody. That I didn't take part in it because I haven't really benched seriously in a while, and I don't want to embarrass myself. I'll do it later when I'm hardcore benching.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Anyways, Chris, this has been an awesome interview, and I'm glad that we finally got to do it. Had the time. This is a very long interview, but we had so much to talk about, and we didn't really talk about a lot of random stuff. We stuck to science, facts. We talked about a lot of different studies that were done, and that's something I love doing in this podcast. I love backing stuff up with facts and not just opinion.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I regurgitated a lot of stuff that came from some of the people I suggested. I think people should definitely check them out. I really appreciate you having me on. This was awesome. Let's do it again, maybe on like muscle hypertrophy or something.
Totally. I would love to do that. All right. So everybody out there, all my listeners, you keep setting your goals and you keep at it.